All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for participating and for being a part of this town hall. I'm really excited to get to hear from these two and hopefully Trey as well. I've had the pleasure of working with both of these women for a number of years now and have really enjoyed my interactions with them. And certainly when we saw them come across the stage in Richmond as Great American Main Street Award winners, I mean, I was over the moon. I can't even imagine what they were feeling. And so we'll get into all of that. If you were coming for the Maestro part of things, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that is not what this town hall is going to be about. We'll probably have a Maestro question here or there. But really, we wanted to take advantage of these two's generosity and really kind of let you pick their brains and just kind of have a discussion around downtown topics from the people that are the cream of the crop, especially for 2022 with our Great American Main Street Award winners. And that's kind of really where we wanted to go with this and hopefully why you came. If you were expecting an hour of Maestro questions, you're going to be disappointed, but I hope you stick around because I can promise you this is going to be better. So with that, for those of you who don't know me, I'll introduce myself and then we'll introduce our guest speakers here. My name is Travis Brown. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer here at Maestro. And we're really excited about everything Maestro's got going. Again, I could sit and talk about that for days on end. For those of you who've worked with me, you understand what I'm talking about. But that's not what today is about. Today is really about our GAMSA winners and really just kind of, again, picking their brain and going over some really interesting questions that have been submitted that I'm excited to hear their feedback on. So I want to introduce our featured speakers here, our panelists. So we're going to start in Maine with Delilah Papour. I got it right this time. And I'm just going to ask Delilah, and then we'll ask Chelsea to just give us a little bit of background about you and kind of your Main Street background and kind of how you got to this point.
Okay, great. Thank you for having me. My name is Delilah Papour, and I live in Biddeford, Maine. I've been the director here for 11 and a half years. And when I first took the job in 2011, I actually had to do a Wikipedia search for what's economic development, because I'd worked in community development so much, but I'd really never had responsibility around economic development. So I think that ended up working well in my favor. Just learning, knowing so much about building community ended up having a positive effect here in the economy as well.
Awesome. And then on the whole other end of the country, down in Louisiana, we have Chelsea Tallow.
Hey everybody, I'm so excited about today. I love to share things and kind of give my knowledge to others, because when I started 7 years ago, I was 24 and I had to Google what is Main Street. So, you know, on the opposite end of that, but like I said, I've been in Hammond, the Hammond Downtown Development District, Hammond Main Street for 7 years. I just finished my Main Street Institute certification. I've got one more big project to become a Louisiana certified economic developer. So lots of good things happening down here, I would say.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in because we've got a lot of questions that you all submitted ahead of time. And I know that there's more questions probably coming. So we're going to start. And since we gave Delilah the first chance to talk, we're going to pose this question to Chelsea first and then to Delilah. So because we're talking about GAMSA and we're talking about our two GAMSA winners, what advice would you give to an organization that's maybe on the fence about whether or not they should apply for a Great American Main Street Award?
Can y'all hear me now? Is this better? I see a thing that says Chelsea's audio isn't the best. Is this better? Okay. Okay, Travis, ask me the question one more time.
Okay, so what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe on the fence about whether or not they should apply for a GAMSA award?
You should do it. There's so many pros The only con is how long it takes. It's like a college thesis, I would say. So we applied 3 times. The first time we did not get anything. And now looking back on that, I'm like, oh yeah, I see how much better this application was. The second time was in 2019, we got semifinalist. And then this year we were obviously we won and got to walk across the stage. But for me, it was more than just an application, and actually pushed me to do things in my organization that I probably would have put on the back burner. I think that yes, it's good to like write these answers and write these things, but it puts into perspective how far you've come, what you want to do. And really, it kind of brought me back to my master plan with things I want to do all while writing the application. So you should absolutely do it. We did it. Hurricane Ida hit the week that it was due. So we actually were given an extension because we had no internet or phones, and we did our application. They tell you it takes like, maybe a month or so, but I did my application in 72 hours with very little internet access. So you can do it. You can do it.
Probably very little sleep too.
Oh, very little sleep. I think we finished it at like 2 a.m. and I submitted it at like 3 a.m. or something crazy like that. And Main Street was super, super nice with letting us submit that late, because I knew we had a good application, but you can't help Mother Nature.
Very true. So Delilah, same question to you then. What advice would you give other than avoiding hurricanes?
Yeah, if you can. I had it in my mind. I always love the presentations at the national conference. I love to hear, why people won and see the videos. I had it in my mind that we wouldn't apply until this certain metric happened in Biddeford. And I thought it was going to happen in 2015, and it didn't. It wasn't until 2021. So we kept holding on, and we were having a lot of positive things, but I thought that was the point where you just couldn't look at Biddeford and say we hadn't transformed this place through the Main Street program. So that's what I used. I had a goal in mind and then applied then. Making sure, just like if you have something like that in your mind, just make sure that you've asked enough people what their goal is, because you might have something stuck, but they've got like 5 other things that these would be great signs of a huge transformation. But it's a great process to do that writing and research and asking people, asking the mayor, will you write a letter on our behalf? And business owners, you end up getting to hear from people how much they care about you. And when you get the award, then so many people just have like written letters, actual like with paper and pens and stamps, and sent notes and written on social media just to add support for us and for the whole downtown. So it's really worth it.
That's awesome. So this was actually a question that we got submitted that I cannot wait to hear your answer. So kind of ping ponging, Delilah, you get first stab at this one. What has changed in your community since earning the GAMSA recognition? And how did your community activate both your semifinalist status and your status as the award winner?
Well, when we started the Main Street program, and then I came on 5 years into it, there was a whole lot of years of, would you mind terribly supporting us? A little bit of that attitude, there wasn't a whole lot of extra money. There wasn't a whole lot of success to hang our hats on at the beginning. So it was just like, could you please trust us? So that has been changing over the last few years, but getting the award, putting banners, beautiful banners all through the downtown saying GAMSA award winners. For our largest event of the year this last year, for the first time, we had sponsors calling us and saying, we'd really like to sponsor at that $2,500 level. I'll get back to you. It's great to have that kind of confidence in us. It was a big vote of confidence. And we're just getting 4 new board members right now that are more reflective of our community. the diversity of our community. And I think that that has to do with the publicity that's come as well. And then, you know, people showing up at our events and coming to enjoy the retail that we have now too. I think it's just been a great publicity opportunity to promote all the positive things that have been brewing, but now we can say, hey, look.
That's awesome. Chelsea, how about you guys? Because again, you guys had a multi-year kind of thing going. How was that experience for you?
Yeah, so I think it's definitely created more of an awareness of who we are and what we do. A lot of people think that we're just a department of the city, because we are a legislative, we're quasi-governmental, which means I'm my own government agency, but I partner with the city. It's confusing, but it's created a lot of awareness for us to where people know what the DDD is, know what we do, know that we're not just the party planners like Main Street has been preaching. And I think it's funny. One of the things that I've been reflective on this past year, especially since the last conference, is to take a moment and celebrate your victories. But I think my community didn't get that memo because I've been trying to celebrate, and this is actually motivating them to keep working. It's like, we won one of the best main streets in the country. Why don't we have better street lights? We got to do something with our street lights. So I think it's funny. They're like, if we're the best, why don't we have X, Y, and Z? Which is great because, I mean, it's great because people are involved in trying to do better things, but also I'm like, let me just celebrate for 5 minutes. But we also tag a Gamza party onto everything. So we just opened a new park and we branded it as a Gamza, like a Gamza celebration. We had one of our state representatives come and give us a resolution, basically congratulating us legally on a big resolution. And then our lieutenant governor and our governor are both coming at different points during the year. So I've spread out my government officials to try to keep it going through December.
That's awesome. And I kind of want to follow up on something you just said, because I think a lot of times, especially when you're in the audience, you see the videos and you watch this team walk across the stage and they get the plaque and the award, and it's kind of this culmination of a lot of things, but it's not the finish line. And I think that was really interesting about if we're a Gamza, why don't we? What have, other than street lights, maybe, what are some other ways that this has kind of spurred the next iteration or the next happening for you there in Hammond?
A lot to do with the election and a lot to do with my board members. They're like, we're the greatest. Why are we not having board members that are doing more than this? Or why aren't our city officials paying money to do sidewalks? So I see it a lot with my board members. Like, I usually struggle to get board members. Like, I have to go recruiting, but this year it's been very much people coming to me and saying, I think I can do better. I think we can do better. Let's do it together. I'm like, okay, here's the form, so that's been the biggest thing for me. And then lights have been really, really big in Hammond too.
That's awesome. And Delilah, I guess I'm assuming it's something similar in Biddeford, but I'd be interested to hear what your experience with that's been.
Yep, I think it is those examples of people having more respect about our town and about our organization, and therefore, my board member was noticing me do our Zoom meeting, with like an LCD projector, shining on the wall. She's like, we can get a TV screen, So she went out and secured $1,000 donation for us to have a TV screen to show our Zoom meetings on, instead of kind of like winging it, which is kind of part of our brand, is that we will by hook or by crook make it, happen. But it's kind of time, like, let's not waste time setting up a cardboard box to put the LCD projector on now. Just have the meeting.
So this is an interesting question that got sent to me, and really about the logistics of how you handled getting your team to Richmond. So how did you handle I'll just read the question here. How did you handle getting the logistics, getting all of your people to the national conference for the GAMSO award announcement? So Delilah, I think you're up first this time.
Okay. They all knew that we were semifinalists, you know, probably before that was announced. And only I and my board president knew when the finalist answer came in. So we were already, as soon as we were, you know, in semifinalists, we were already talking it up, trying to get everybody there. And then as we got closer, we decided to drive down to Richmond. So we said we had a van, how many people can fit. And then we end up, you know, letting them know we needed to be on the stage. Some directors have been able to pull it off without telling people, but we wanted to get as big a crowd there as possible.
Chelsea, how about you guys? I'm guessing you didn't drive.
Definitely not. We flew. First off, I told them that it was required. I made that up, but I told them it was required. So I had some board members there. I also had my mayor there and 2 city council councilmen that were in my district. But the big thing for me was Louisiana Main Street actually paid a pretty decent amount. We all wanted people on the stage, but to fly with the flight prices right now and everything, I was hoping that I would have 4 or 5 there, but Louisiana Main Street stepped up pretty big and actually gave us a $5,000 travel scholarship. So I was able to reach out and say to my university to send a representative, to my city to send representatives, and that helped. I think that if we had to pay for it ourselves, or if they had to pay for it themselves, we never would have gotten them there. So Main Street, Louisiana Main Street really is the reason that I had people there, and faking that it was required. So
that is a great answer. So before we hop over into just general Main Street topics, is there anything else either one of you want to share about the GAMSA process, or just anything GAMSA related? Because I've got some other, like I said, a lot of Main Street questions since you two have been doing this for a while.
Just to quickly answer the question in the chat, what was the one metric that I was waiting for? We have a huge mill district in our downtown, and a bunch of the mills had been developed from 2009 on, but there's one right on Main Street, and it had been purchased in 2015, but took a lot, and so now there's 147 units and a boutique hotel in that mill, and that was what I really wanted to see happen. I guess the other thing I would just say is that I did have a small team helping me write pieces, but in the end, I ended up needing to really do a lot of the writing because I wanted it to sound like one voice. So if you do ask people to help you, perhaps ask them to send you a draft that you can use for incorporating in one voice, just so they don't get too wed to the paragraphs they write.
So,
I would say, oh, you go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to follow up. So, because I meant to ask this earlier. So you said you thought it would happen about 2015 and it took a little longer, 2019, and it took a little longer. Are you glad you held out, or do you wish that you would have applied sooner? I mean, it obviously.
I had heard that usually people apply multiple times, and I guess I was just, nope, I'm going to wait until I know I can say with confidence, like, we really did something that nobody thought could happen.
That's awesome. So Chelsea, we started talking at the same time, so you're up now.
I think my one of my favorite tips to share is that the supporting documents and the photography and videography are equally as important as all of the written answers. I sat through a presentation at the national conference in 2015. I don't remember who won, but they said if you don't have photos and videos, anybody can go in and change Hammond to Biddeford and no one would know the difference, you know? So I was like, oh my God, I have to get a photographer. Like, what am I going to do? So I've been working on my, sorry, I'm working from home. Oh, hold on one second. I've been working on my library of images and videos for years. And I think that really, for us, sold our application.
That's awesome. Well, this was great. And as much as I could sit and talk gams all day, obviously you two rose to the top for a reason. It's not just a great application. You've got a lot of downtown experience and have been doing this. And we got some great questions that I wanted to throw out to you. We'll start with an easy one. How do you deal with a downtown business owner who will not agree to cooperate with requests and ordinances? I thought this was a good one because I know I've experienced this too, and I think we all have, but I'd be interested in how things are going for you two with regards to this. So Chelsea, I think you're up first this time.
Yeah, so I really had to reflect on what my answer was going to be to this. And I think my answer is that I don't. Now listen. I think my job is to be the kind face, the face that they're comfortable talking to, and I'm very cheerful and positive. So when I go to approach people about breaking ordinances, it's not always, I'll approach them, but it's not always me that does the dirty work. It's the city and it's my historic district who has fines. So I can push them to do the correct thing. But for me, I work hand in hand with my city and my historic district to find them. And if they're not doing it, then I mean, they're gonna get fined. So I'm the face that kind of says, look, I really don't want you to get fined. Let's figure out how we can work with this. But on the internal side of things, I'm at the city permits office and the building department, and I'm like, their window is broken, like, please find them. So I'm kind of that person in the middle. I think I work both sides, but I don't have the authority to make them do or don't do anything. It's my resources and my historic district and my city that can.
Delilah, you're shaking your head.
Yeah. I was thinking that, on that continuum, there is like people who are actually breaking ordinance and stuff, but there's all kinds of people who also just aren't necessarily cooperating with the big picture of the downtown, where it's going. And we get to be in that more of that role of building a relationship, offering resources, happening to have them win a free design to their storefront in a contest that they didn't sign up for. You can cleverly make those available. But I wanted to give one other kind of like contrary opinion. There's a property owner, who really just isn't playing along. So that was a case where it turns out, no matter how many times I contacted codes wasn't able to see anything move either. And it was that the code is not good. It's not in good shape. So, and I've brought that up to codes before, but that didn't move either. So it's, taking initiative and putting together a meeting of property owners and the codes department and the mayor to say, looks like there's a difficulty here. What's in the way? And asking why this can't move, and it turns out it wasn't just that property, but multiple ones. And then bringing in best practices from other places, having, business enhancement committee members do research on that. And now we're really close to a new ordinance that will have the teeth needed to move some of these situations along.
That's great advice. I love that. I mean, we had to deal with that with sign ordinances here in Quincy, where the sign ordinance, just common sense didn't play a factor in it. And so we spent 2 years reworking the sign code to insert some common sense. Like if you have an existing frame, you can use the frame. You just have to change the sign. Little fun things, right?
I want to follow up with that.
Please.
So we have a design committee that has design guidelines that were adopted by our city council. So our design standards are actually in Hammond's UDC policy. So it's for me, it's hard to get things changed in that actual policy, but the design committee standards, that takes a really simple vote by the board members. So when things don't work for us, my design guidelines are so much easier and so much more fluid. So I'm able to do that because it is an insert to the UDC. So that's a really cool way to kind of get around the full process of changing codes. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you guys mentioned kind of building consensus and trying to do that. So I love this question. How do you get volunteers to take on responsibilities, and kind of how do you build that volunteer engagement piece? Obviously we don't do any of this alone as directors, and you have to have a big team. So how do you build that team? Chelsea, how did you go about that in Hammond?
I think I'm still working on that. Volunteers are so hard to get. They're hard for every organization. I think my best resource is my college. I've got a really good relationship with a lot of those departments, and I have a really strong internship program. So whenever I need volunteers, the first thing I do is reach out to my interns from previous years, and they always step up and send me whatever we need for volunteers. But I do need a better volunteer program. It's me and one other full-time employee, and then a volunteer board. So right now I'm just working on getting my volunteer board to step up more, and we have, since we've won GAMSA. But I don't have a great answer to this, because I need more training on volunteer recruitment and retention. So
Delilah, how about you?
Yeah, I was just resonating with you again, Chelsea, that one of the tricky things is not saying, I'll do it. So I guess some of that's like having self-control, not making sure that that you'll make sure everything happens, because then volunteers, they're busy. They have their job, and oh, you're being paid to do it. So just, like nipping that in the bud, naming it with people, like, we're trying to cultivate volunteerism. So I'm not going to say yes to that. I would like to do that project, but it's not gonna, meet our long-term goal. A really specific thing we have done for 7 years is we've had an AmeriCorps Vista work with us. In Maine, it's about a $6,500 investment, and you have a full-time person working with you for the year. And their work has always been on volunteer engagement. So they'll have, days of service with the university or high school or middle school, cultivate the youth engagement that way, and a whole bunch of other volunteer engagement projects. Our Adopt a Park program. And it's just awesome to have basically a third staff member for not a third staff member price. And I did do the training for the Points of Light Foundation on Service Enterprise, it's called. I think that's worth looking into, because that's where I started learning about skilled volunteers and how you try to find out if somebody's coming in with some skills that they want to use for the organization. How do you match them really well so that they're getting what they want out of the volunteer experience? I'm more or less able to do that depending on the AmeriCorps member that we're working with, because they can meet with every single person and take an hour to do a skills, assessment and interest assessment with them before deploying them, I should say.
Okay, so I'm gonna have you repeat that, because I can sense everybody in the chat going, okay, what was that organization again?
So the AmeriCorps part, or the enterprise?
The
service
skills
enterprise
piece.
Yeah, service enterprise training offered through the Points of Light Foundation. And that training, it goes around the whole country, and we got it for free, I'm pretty sure. But it helps you assess your volunteer programs, and then how to really look at skilled volunteers and placing them in the organization in a way that they have an agreement of what they're providing for you, and vice versa. More of a mutual experience than, will you please just come help us Saturday? Which we do too.
Love that. And not to insert too much, but one of the things that I have found, because we've done a lot of volunteer training with a lot of organizations, and I could go way down this rabbit hole, but I'm going to offer up my 2 suggestions. Anytime you do a major event, so not like the little, retail events or something, but anytime you do one of your signature events, every signature event should have 2 volunteers for everything. Not to do everything, but everyone should have 2 volunteers. One, going back to Chelsea's point earlier, you want a photographer. You are too busy to take pictures during the event. You need somebody that will go around and take pictures of happy people that you can use to promote it next year. So you got to have a photographer, and you need somebody that their only job is volunteer recruitment. They go around and look for the person having the time of their life and say, hey, would you like to help make this a reality next year? Those 2 will pay off huge on your signature events, because it gets people, again, that volunteer recruiter, that's an easy entry point, right? They're already there. They're already committed. They're already having a great time. All you have to do is basically open the door and invite them in. And not all of them are going to turn out to be great volunteers, but you'll win way more than you'll lose doing that. So that's great. I love this question as well. What insight can you give directors that are new to Main Street and would like to see some immediate wins in your community? So Delilah, I think you're up first this time.
Let's see. Okay. I think it's about assessing your resources. Somebody recently visited me from a new developing Main Street, and they want to have a flower program in their downtown, just like Biddeford has. And they're so frustrated because they wrote it up and brought it to their city council, and the city council isn't spending $150,000. And what she didn't realize, and I had to explain, is that we used to buy, like charge businesses $40, and we buy the whiskey barrels and fill them and grow the plants and bring them through the downtown and water them ourselves. And then we got a $5,000 grant to build a few, more sturdy pots, and still grew them ourselves and still pulled a water wagon around the downtown and watered. And it wasn't until we kept upping it that the city, I think, started to go I want to get credit for this. And then they took that program and multiplied it by, 30. And then they have 2 staff who water every day for all the flowers that are downtown. So that was a 9-year process for the downtown to look like this in terms of flowers. So don't discount any great idea that you have, even if you think it's small, if you can get people together to do a really good job on it and to continue building on it.
Chelsea, how about you?
Yeah, mine is kind of similar. I think that you have to start small. I think we sit through a lot of classes where we see these, like Delilah's flower program, and we're like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. How do I do that? But the process starts, you don't go from 0 to 100 in a day. You have to do those lighter, quicker, cheaper projects to build some momentum before you say, okay, I'm going to spend $150,000 from the city. You have to work up your credibility in order to ask for those things. One of the things that we focused on our application was what we call Railroad Park. We just finished building another public space in our downtown. But the plans for that started in 1995. So if I were just focused on just that program, just that one project, we would have never gotten anything done. So sometimes you have to step away from the planning side of things, step away from your strategic plan, and just go outside and pick up trash. And then the next day, just go outside and clean a sidewalk, and then slowly start building up your credibility. And eventually all those small projects will snowball into bigger projects, and you're more confident to ask for bigger things once you've done some small things.
Those are great answers. And I'm going to kind of piggyback that into this question. what advice would you give? Because I know I see some on here. What advice would you give a new, like less than 4 months on the job director? Chelsea?
I'll go. Do not get overwhelmed. It is so easy to say, oh my gosh, like I need to clean up this building. I'm supposed to be doing events, economic development. I need to do a business inventory. I need to meet with all these property owners, like all the things you're supposed to be doing in Main Street. Take one task a day and make sure that you have work plans. I think I went like 5 years without work plans. So everyone around is like twiddling their thumbs, waiting for me to tell them what to do. Like sit down, let someone else, like be on your team and just take small steps. That's coming from experience. Because when I came in, it was like, we were in the middle of trying to renovate sidewalks while planning an event. And like, I needed to get with the city to find people for broken windows. And I'm like, I've been here for 2 days. So I mean, like, I don't know what to do. So just start slow and eventually you'll get the hang of it.
Great answer. Delilah, how about you?
I would pick basically, this is a good Maestro answer. Keep track, meet everybody and keep track of the fact that you're meeting them. There's incredible power in relationships. And, at first I was a little shy, getting to every business as often as I needed to. So I made a little paper thing called What's Up Downtown. And there wasn't really that much on it. It only took me like an hour to make it each time I did, but it was an excuse to walk into every business and hand out the little flyer. And that's how I made sure that I knew everybody's name and phone number and email, and that we had each other's cell number. Now when the city needs to figure something out, they say, check what Delilah says, and I can send out a text to 18 people right now and get the city an answer on that. It's invaluable to know people and be able to reach them. That really wasn't an on purpose Maestro plug.
We'll get to the
my work plans. My work plans wasn't on purpose either.
I appreciate it a lot. But no, those are great answers. The one that I always say is the board didn't hire you because you know everything. They hired you for who you are and what you can do. Don't feel like you've got to take it all on yourself, kind of like Chelsea said, and give yourself time, because at least for me personally, it takes a year in a job to understand what that job is, because you don't know that right now I need to be planning for the thing in February until you've done the thing in February. And then you're like, oh, light bulb moment, I should have been ordering this stuff months ago. And you do better year 2 and you do better year 3, and it just kind of improves as you go. So don't get discouraged because you don't know everything. You're not supposed to. Okay. I want to throw out some Maestro questions, but I'm going to throw in one of Travis's favorite downtown questions. I'm going to put you two on the spot. Do you have a parking problem in your downtown? Delilah, you're laughing.
Yes, isn't that great news?
Great. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we the big problem at first was people couldn't park in front of every business they wanted to, and they thought that meant there was a parking problem. But we really did need to address the fact that the businesses in the mills couldn't expand without more parking, and if they did expand out onto Main Street, that would take care of the 100% of what's in front of businesses. So we did have to build a parking garage here. But yeah, there, unfortunately now I've gone down a rabbit hole in my head, because, the real parking problem is to know what's going to be happening in 5 and 10 years in terms of people and cars. And, are we going to own cars? Are we going to Uber? Are we making things bike ready now? So unfortunately, I feel like we've been addressing the parking problems of about 10 years ago in the city, and it would be great to be able to be addressing the parking and car problems of 20 years from now instead.
That's very eloquent, and I wish I'd have thought of something that smart. Chelsea, how about you? Do you have a parking problem?
I'm going to say the opposite. No, I don't have a parking problem. I have a perception problem. And I use this example because I'm a huge Saints fan. And when I go to New Orleans and I go to a Saints game, it takes nothing for me and my friends to walk the mile from the Saints game to the free parking at the casino. Okay, that's where we park because it's free. Has nothing to do with gambling. Okay. But I'll walk a mile. I will walk a mile. But if I'm in my downtown, people, if they're going to go get their hair done, want to park right in front of the business. I mean, you also don't park right in front of Walmart. So get it together. I get really heated when people tell me that we have parking problems. And I'm like, no, ma'am, you have a perception problem. I'll show you the 500 free parking spots that you can park in. So I get an attitude when people tell me we have parking problems.
I love it.
Mhm.
We're the same way in Quincy. We do not have a parking problem. We definitely have a perception problem. And you know, I always viewed my goal as a director was to create a parking problem, and we didn't get there. We made some progress.
I saw one time at one of the conferences, someone with as smart of an attitude as me made these little cards, one of the Main Street managers, because the business owners don't like to hear complaints about parking either. So they gave these posters and it said, nowhere to park, here, park in one of our 1,200 free parking spots. And it had a map with all of the free parking all around town. So the business owner couldn't be like, oh, I'm sorry you couldn't park. They're like, here's where you can park. So I've always wanted to do that too.
I love it. So along those lines, one more that I'll put you both on the spot. Over the last, say, 3 years, what's the best Main Street idea that you've heard? Whether you've implemented or not, what's the best Main Street idea that you've heard in the last couple of years?
You get to go first, don't you, Chelsea?
Delilah's stalling for time.
Is it me or I'll
It
try to
doesn't
think.
matter. If you've got one, go for it.
That's a hard question. I don't know.
I have something to share.
Please.
First.
Who can say if this is the best idea that I've heard, but I did just get to apply for a grant a few months ago. And if we get it, it would be like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I love grant money. And it would get all like 19 nonprofit partners in the community working together toward the same goals of, meeting the needs in the community of people who are not benefiting from gentrification, essentially, and it would basically have a council of people who are most impacted by that. And our 19 organizations would be following the lead of those folks. And, it would be great to have many $100,000 to be able to implement that. But even if we don't, I think that's, we're kind of so fortunate to see the positive changes that you list, but they have a huge impact on the housing costs. And I wish I would have thought of it, 10 years ago and had the solutions before then, but nobody believed Biddeford was going to make it, So you couldn't say, make sure that every new development that happens has 25% in affordable housing. Couldn't pull that off at the time. So now we've got to make up for it. And so my idea that I like is, having a lot of money to get a lot of people around the table, really listening to each other and strategically making sure that everybody's needs get met. That's
awesome.
my dream.
Okay, I got it.
I love it.
So I don't know if any of you are part of the Downtown Happy Hour Facebook page. If you're not, you definitely should go join that. They do, Ben, Jeff, and Joe, they all do a little talk like once a week or so. Well, they came to our last meeting. We do a destination downtown, like our tri-state conference. They made a comment about our events, like how many events we're doing. And they said, we would rather you do 30% less and do everything better. And that really has stuck with me. I think that and then the celebrating what you've done. They talked about both of those in that conference. I think is really what I'm focusing on this year and trying to make intentional. I've been saying no a lot more often. And when I do say no at a board meeting, it's like, no, I can't do that alone. But if you want to do it, I'll be happy to help. So I think that's the two things: do 30% less and do it better, and then celebrate everything that you're doing. I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's the most recent best advice.
Hey, those are
Really
both
good advice.
answers. And I love the Downtown Happy Hour folks. It kills me that they do it so well, because I feel like I missed an opportunity to do that myself.
They're so
Be
funny.
in the same world, and I'm like, oh, they are brilliant, and I'm not, but they do a very good job. So I would echo that. If you haven't checked them out, you definitely need to. I know we're kind of getting shorter on time, so I've got to get my shameless plug in. We had a lot of Maestro questions come through, and I'm promise I'm not going to ask all of them. I'm going to ask this one though. What one or two suggestions would you offer to somebody who's just now kind of starting or just thinking about utilizing Maestro? So Chelsea, since you came up with that one, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think Travis is the best resource. I think you need to get on Maestro before you get set in your ways of doing things scattered like I was. And you need to sit down and make yourself do it, even though it's different. So we use Maestro. I still haven't gotten the full hang of doing everything that Maestro can do, but I use it as a business and content inventory. So any new contents I have, any new business or building, I'll do all of that. But my life would be so much easier if I used the work plans and all of the development. And Travis is the key to making sure that you figure all of that out, because it really does help you and it saves you a lot of time once you get it all set up and once you know how to use it.
Well, thank you. Delilah, how about you?
We definitely use it for contacts, businesses, property owners, and that piece that is just, you can do a lot of that in a spreadsheet, but you can't do that over time in a spreadsheet very well. So you can track everything that's, every change that happens. And now I actually just, if I'm walking down the street and see a new phone number in a building or meet a new person, I just read the message into our office manager, and then she collects it. And about once a week, everything that I've sent her, she'll update Maestro. And then anywhere I am, I can text her at a meeting and say, who is that new owner of that thing? And she can write it right back, because she'll just open up Maestro and do it. I mean, I know I could do it, but she's the maestro. And then I think, as far as we had been using it for events and then fell off, particularly during COVID. A lot of our kinds of things like that have needed volunteerism to do it. So we're planning on just getting back on the horse, just putting the Downtown Holiday Festival, using the Maestro protocol. And then when Winterfest comes, using the Maestro. And then by a year from now, all of our events will be back in and up to date. So that's my recommendation on, utilizing. You don't have to do 100% of it ever.
And nobody does. I'll be honest. We maybe have two communities that do, across the country. And I'm really proud of the fact that that's the case, because it means that we've provided value in a lot of different areas. So communities can do it at whatever rate or whatever method works for them. because that's really our whole goal, right? We didn't build Maestro to make Travis have a day job. I mean, it's great and I love it, but we built Maestro for the sole purpose of helping Main Street organizations make things just a little bit easier. That's how we got the name, right? It's supposed to make directing a little bit easier. And so if we can do that every day, Travis is happy. So I know we're really short on time now, but if people have questions, want to throw those in the chat window, we would certainly do our best to answer them. I know we're getting a lot of thank yous for you two, which is certainly well deserved because you two are phenomenal. Like I said, while we're waiting on a couple questions, I will just reiterate how thankful I am for your time to do this. You two have been an absolute pleasure. I think, Chelsea, I probably worked with you about 3 or 4 years now. And Delilah, we've been together almost 6 now, I think. Delilah,
we go
was
way
one of our
back.
first ones from, she probably was around to see me as the schmuck in the tux in Milwaukee.
You bet.
Won't do that again. Rented tuck shoes all day at a Main Street conference was not the way to go.
Ow.
Tucks may come back, but the shoes will not. Again, if anybody's got any questions, please feel free to throw them into the chat window. Otherwise, like I said, we know that everybody's got very busy schedules, and I just want to thank everybody so much for taking the time to join us. Again, thank you to both of you for sharing your expertise and your knowledge, and really appreciate everybody for what they're doing in their community. The best part of my job is that I get to work with all of you and get to go and visit all these communities. My director probably hates it because every time I go on a trip, I come back with about 7 new ideas that I'm like, hey, we got to go do this. And I think she's like, you need to stop traveling for a little while, but it's just awesome. And I love doing it. And you all are the reason we get to, so thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Happy to share. That's all. That's what Main Street is. Mostly you gotta rip off and duplicate everything you can to make your life easy. It's just a whole
Totally.
lot of it.